Welcome back. In today's 5-minute video, we're going to talk about a scary but necessary topic for the bank and our clients, that of fraud protection services. For this video, we're going to talk about two main types of fraud: ACH fraud, aka electronic payments, and check fraud. There are many other types of fraud, which could include things like social engineering, executive impersonation, etc. But since we're keeping this video to 5 minutes, we'll only have time to talk about combating ACH and check fraud. That said, it's incredibly important to educate yourself on the other types so that you can discuss them with your clients and prospects as part of a comprehensive fraud conversation. At the end of the video, we'll touch briefly on how to get clients set up for these services if and when they decide to move forward. So with that, let's get started. Now, we combat ACH fraud with what we call ACH Monitor Fraud Review and Approval. We also call that, for shorthand, ACH Monitor. This is a fancy way of saying we ask the client to tell us what outgoing ACHs they want to go through and which ones they want us to stop. The client can elect certain vendors to be on the fast track, like the IRS or maybe their payroll partner, and they can also set a dollar amount fast track, like anything under $1,000 goes through without question. Anything not on the fast track list will be flagged, and an email will be sent to the client to manually decision whether or not to pay the flagged item. If a decision is not made on an item, there is a default disposition to either pay or not pay an item, and each of those dispositions has potential consequences, which makes it incredibly important for the client to decision each ACH item presented. Of course, there is a fee for this service, but possibly the greatest cost is the time and energy required by the company employees to decision these items, including around the holidays, while people are on vacation, or in the unlikely event of no internet access. Now, we combat check fraud with something called Positive Pay. Positive Pay works a lot like ACH Monitor in similar but different ways. The biggest difference here is there is no fast track. For each individual check presented, the client must tell us whether or not to pay the item. How do they do that? I'm glad you asked. Most clients will tell us through Treasury Center all the check numbers they write and the dollar amounts they've been written for. If a check is presented that has a mismatched dollar amount and check number, it will be returned. Importantly, this system will not stop a check from clearing where the payee was modified, or if the check is presented into account other than the intended payee. So to combat this, we also offer a variation called Payee Positive Pay. With this variation, the payee is now a third data point that's validated before a check is honored. It's important to note, however, that abbreviations like my name, so for example Chris instead of Christopher, can cause falsely identified fraudulent items, and this shortcoming causes Payee Positive Pay to not be widely used. A third variation is Reverse Positive Pay. Much like ACH Monitor, where the bank will tell the customer all the checks being presented drawn on their account for that day and ask for a pay or return decision on each. Positive Pay and Reverse Positive Pay are the two most commonly utilized services here. Finally, the customer could elect to block all debits that come through via ACH or check, or both. We call these services by a very descriptive name of either ACH block or check block. After discussing with the customer which type of fraud protection services are right for them, including the operational requirements and fees of each, if they're ready to move forward, simply engage your treasury management partner and provide them with the customer business name, account number or numbers, the global administrator name, along with any sub-user or secondary users, and everyone's cell phone number and email address. Now, fraud is a very unfortunate reality of the world we live in today, and we have the opportunity, dare I say obligation, to educate our clients and communities on ways they can protect themselves from bad actors. Thank you, and see you next time.